Welcome back to the podcasts, my podcasters. Today's the day. Yes, it is. You've asked me on the live stream, you've asked me in the comment sections, and you've asked me in email form, why is this happening? Why are we in such a societal decay? Why has the world gone crazy? You know, I can't answer about the world because I don't care. But I can answer the first, and we are getting into it. We're getting into the why, finally. Right after this. This episode, proudly brought to you by Guy's Gun Shop. Information on thepodcast.com or straight down below. If you don't have a gun, you need a gun. Call Guy. He's going to make sure that you get the right gun. And it's also brought to you by TB2K, Time Bomb 2000, for all the news you need to see but won't. Time Bomb 2000. You need to come join us. And we are talking Alexander Tytler today, and that is the why. Boom. You've never heard of him. No problem. I have. Alexander Tytler was a Scottish advocate, judge, writer, and historian who served as professor of universal history and Greek and Roman antiquities at the University of Edinburgh. Tytler lived at the same time as the American founding fathers and described a repeating cycle in history. He found that democratic societies went through the same cycle again and again, and that the cycle lasted roughly 200 years each time. History reinforced his theory. I mean, he was a professor of history, so I want to say it's in his wheelhouse. And the present sure seems to be panning it out today. Look outside. So his idea states that a democracy is temporary in nature and cannot exist as a permanent form of government, and I fully agree. A democracy will continue to exist up until the time that voters discover they can vote themselves generous gifts from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates who promise the most benefits from said public treasury, with the result that every democracy will finally collapse due to loose fiscal policy, which is always followed by a dictatorship. Funnily enough, Bastiat, a Frenchman, businessman, and he was a politician. He wrote the exact same thing when he penned The Law. The Law. If you have not read The Law by Frederick Bastiat, you need to read The Law by Frederick Bastiat, and the link's below. But back to Tytler. We'll get to Bastiat. He said the repeating cycle starts out with a society in bondage. Now, this is clearly a metaphor, and bondage, the form of bondage, would be described differently by different cultures. For us in the U.S., we had a faraway king who would not allow us representation in his court. He was the puppet master, and we were the puppets. That was our U.S. bondage. So the Tytler cycle goes through stages. I thought, you know what? Let's talk about those. Bondage is the first stage, and it's a point of degeneration and despair where no change will help. That's centralized control, which leads to a spiritual awakening. People oppose the conditions and search for some unity in a common cause, which leads to courage, the fight for freedom, which leads, assuming it's a successful fight, they're not all successful, but if they are, it tends to lead to liberty, success, the formation of codified freedom with the promise of opportunity. If you can describe liberty better than that, I am all ears. Liberty leads to abundance, a maturing of government, material growth, prosperity. When man is free from the yoke of government, he does well. He takes raw materials, he turns them into tangible goods, he sells them. Everybody benefits. But abundance leads to selfishness. Now that's the greed of material gain. And it creates corrupt special interest groups, often using the levers of government. I'm sure you've heard of crony capitalism, selfishness, which leads to complacency. The sense of entitlement of legacy groups with whining and complaining of the developing conflicting interests. I can illustrate this so many ways, but I'm not going to do it here. Complacency leads to apathy. Now, apathy is a state at which people, they accept no responsibility for problems, and they blame everyone else for a system of corruption that they helped bring in. Apathy leads to dependence. Control of independence to control corruption and the centralization of freedom. Guess where you go from there? Right back into bondage. Right back into bondage. The cycle, it's long, and it requires that generations pass so they can forget how they got where they are in their present phase of the cycle. It rarely reverses. Though, many cycles, they can appear within the larger cycle. And I'm sure someday, after our collapse and whatever we rebirth into, the historians of that day will lay out our entire civilization on a grid, and they're going to map the specific points of the cycle. Now, currently, many sense that something's changed and something is wrong with the way things are going. We're in the midst of a generational political divide where we are blaming the other. It's always the other. It's always the other guy. Most are sitting back and just letting it happen. But in their defense, the vast majority have been so beaten down by propaganda that they wouldn't be able to see truth if it on their foreheads. They just wouldn't see it. And sadly, my podcasters, this is how it ends for our current regime. And as we stated in previous videos, collapsing regimes never go quietly, and they will take everyone with them if they can. There are many people in this country right now who can see every bit of truth in this, in the Tytler Cycle, and they simply don't care. These folks, they are quite comfortable. They are quite comfortable wearing their chains, staying in their comfortable cave, and honestly, they could care less about what happened, what's happening, and what is going to happen. You know, though, don't you? Sure you do. So look, guys, that should answer the why question I've been getting so much. Why is this happening? Why don't people see this? That's on our next video. Allegory of the Cave. And if it's not up on the channel yet, it will be next. And you're going to want to watch it. That one answers the why don't people see this? Why do people do anything about this question? We have new videos coming out every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, as well as a behind-the-scenes podcast, which can be found on thepodcasts.com, all one word, and also available on Apple, iHeart, Spotify, pretty much every major streaming player. Just look for the podcasts. If you got some value out of this video, please like it, please subscribe, please share it with your friends, and please join us on our live stream happening every Friday night right here on this YouTube channel at 7:30 Central. You know it's coming. You know. and we need to talk. For myself, Tyler Bell, and Cardinal, until next time, guys, please stay safe. Keep up your situational awareness. Keep your head on a swivel. And we're going to talk to you next time.